Hello and welcome to the Gallant Few Rangers podcast. My name is Mason Stewart and I'll be your host this evening. I suppose it's not the best night to be hosting after an extremely disappointing result and performance last night, but we're back on it again, hoping for a big response this weekend. With me tonight first is Chris. How you doing, mate?
I've been better, mate, must admit. Still obviously raw for yesterday. It's a sore one. Take us a few days to go over that, hopefully on Sunday, but aye, that was a tough one.
Yeah, it was, mate. It was a tough watch, and we need to bounce back quickly. Also, we've got David. David, how are you after last night?
Oh, well, pretty much as you two are, sore. But, after the setback, we just need to focus on the comeback. So I'm hoping we'll get ourselves to a positive place by the end.
Yep, it's got to be positive. We've got a lot to get through tonight. Just before we do get onto the football, as a podcast, I think it's very important with our podder Chris, who is founder of Man of Inverclyde, I should say, which is a mental health charity who specialises in suicide prevention. Chris, again, would you just mind giving the listeners another little intro on that, mate? If that mind.
Yeah, no bother, and cheers for this, because obviously I spoke about it at the last podcast, and we actually had somebody messages just looking for support after hearing it, so that was ideal, and we got that guy supported. So if he's listening again to this podcast, I hope you're doing well. So basically we're a mental health charity. We are based in Inverclyde in Scotland, but we do connect further afield, which that guy obviously wasn't from Inverclyde, and we supported him. So yeah, we've got lots of stuff on. You'll find us on social media at Man on Inverclyde. Have a look on there, drop us a message, find out a little bit more about what we do. It's Time to Talk Day today, which is sort of mental health campaign day. So we've been quite busy today meeting people. So yeah, if you're ever struggling or you want to find out a bit more about us, get in touch. But no, thank you for that. And as I said, it's already helped one person sharing the word, so ideal.
No, that's really good news, and I'd just like to echo that as well. I think it's really good what you do, mate, and got a lot of respect for that. And I'd just like to say, if you ask anyone listening is struggling, please contact the podcast, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and I'm sure we can put you through to Chris and get talking. Now on to the game last night, David. The lineup was pretty much, I think, which 90% of us would have gone with. I think. What was your sort of thoughts on the lineup and your thoughts pre-match?
Well, my thoughts on seeing the team were pretty positive. I'm thinking, we're going to be hopefully having a go at them here. But the problem was that when the game kicked off, we didn't really have a go at them. It was, I think they had actually scored before we'd crossed the halfway line. So you just kind of get an indication early doors of that. This was not going to plan, or certainly not a plan that was discussed in the Rangers changing room prior to the game. So, you're thinking 4 minutes, okay, we'll take the dun. We'll improve from here, but it didn't seem to improve. They just seemed more up for it. We were second best in most of the 50-50s. And some of the players, just looked frightened. Obviously it would be an intimidating atmosphere, but these guys are professional football players. It shouldn't really matter how many's in the ground for them to perform. So the first half was sore, and then we'd lost the 2 goals and it's towards the end of the first half, and you're thinking. But you could see early doors, and I posting on the WhatsApp that this is we need to get our shit together. We didn't seem to do that. So kind of lots to talk about here in terms of, the setup that Gio intended and the setup that we actually ended up with and how that formation went. But certainly at the outset when they named the players, you would have thought, maybe Diallo would do you want to put that boy in there, because it's right into the lion's den. So there's that, but I wasn't jumping up and down. I was quite happy to go with Gio's 11. So it just didn't go to plan, obviously.
No, I agree. I think you make some good points there. I think especially on the Diallo one, I think before the game, I was sort of calling out for him to start, but 10 minutes in, I thought, no, this ain't a good idea. But that's where the leaders in the team. We always knew the start was going to be important last night, and to be honest, the game was done early doors, wasn't it? Because we just did not. We put an attacking team out, but we didn't attack. I didn't know what we was doing last night. I didn't know if we were sitting. It looked like we were just sitting off and hoping for the best. It weren't good. Chris, what did you make of the start?
I mean, obviously the big worry for me was the sort of coming out very quickly from them. The first sort of 15-20 minutes for me was a concern, and we folded. Under that. I didn't even realise that we actually never got past the halfway line by the time they'd scored, which obviously is alarming. But I think early on, you sort of knew that it was going to be a long evening. The players just, I don't know where the kind of mix-up came from or what the issues were, but they just weren't even doing the basics right. You're well aware of what their strengths are in terms of, down the wings, you need to press them at the right points, and we just weren't doing anything at all that represented what we were about, any other game against them. And it looked like, I think Gio touched on this, actually looked like the first time they'd actually played in that game, all of them. They just looked as if they had never played that occasion before. So the start was terrible. But at 1-0, obviously we'll maybe go into different parts of the game, but at 1-0, you're kind of thinking, you've always got a chance, to bring it back. But yeah, it wasn't great. But as I said, we knew that. I think we all discussed that actually in the podcast. They're going to have that blood and thunder start. That's the way they play. But they then tire out. But unfortunately, it was a shambles, to be honest, from start to finish. And some players, particularly for me, Borna Barisic, I know he's had it tight, but particularly for me, I have no idea what he was even thinking. Last night he was awful, absolutely awful, and he deserved to get taken off. But when you're touching on the starting lineup, I probably wouldn't have made any changes. I thought maybe Fashion Sakala potentially over Diallo, but you're not really thinking any other changes. But yeah, the start was terrible, and it played right into their hands. The crowd just fed off that. And that kind of continued on as we know, obviously, the rest of that half.
Yeah, no, I agree with everything you say there. I think that we needed to ride that storm for 25, 30 minutes. We needed to come through that. And then we needed our ball players in the midfield to take the ball and be a bit more brave. I think we weren't brave at all on the ball in the first half. But the fullbacks for me was a big concern. Our fullbacks, I thought, as you said, Barisic he just didn't want to know, and we've seen this with Barisic before. But I think last night was the worst, and I'm just thinking now, if I'm being honest, I don't know how he recovers from this, because that type of performance, I bet 90% of us don't want to see him in the starting lineup on Sunday. I can tell you that. So he's not the only one. He ain't the only one, but for me, he was awful. I see the first 30 seconds, he drops back when Abada gets the ball, and he runs the other way, and Abada's in the penalty box, and they get a corner straight away. And then just before that, we've got Arfield, Aribo, a whole midfield have 3 attempts to win a 50-50, and they lose all 3. That was in the first 30 seconds, and that just set the tone. David, what was the first half? What would you, if you was Gio standing there watching, what would you have done 15 minutes in?
Well, I think it ended up, from the kick-off, our inability to contain them. And I was hoping that the setup, and the way Rangers would have approached the game would have been to actually counter their tactical setup, rather than just a question of, holding out for 20, 25 minutes before we actually got a foothold in the game. But you saw our approach, a number of times from Barisic, as you pointed out, because when that Abada was running at him, Abada was in the penalty box before Barisic would actually go and challenge him. Whereas, further up the park, the minute a Rangers player got a ball, the press was on. And when we ever got possession, we had possession for 10, 15 seconds before they pressed us to get possession back, and were straight back at us. Whereas we didn't do that, not only, in the midfield, but, outside the 18-yard box. And it just seems to be that we were not. I mean, it was passes from our left, their right, which were instrumental in a couple of their goals. So we just didn't close them down enough for me. That there was just a lack of application for the Rangers players. I expect that. I mean, they're all talented football players, but with that there has to be a work ethic. In terms of getting on our toes, rather than the back foot, go press the ball, go win it. Because we had McGregor was booked in 22 minutes, so he would have immediately been earmarked for me for someone who you're going to press. You say, right, well, he's now on a yellow card after 22 minutes, and you saw the instance where Borna has the chance to take him down our left wing. And decides to cut back, and have him make a challenge. Get the referee to start making decisions. Ping it past him and go. So we just took the easy option far too often for me, and it just seemed to be like almost from the outset a damage limitation exercise, which kind of carried on until half time. And Gio obviously got them into the changing room. Obviously, maybe took the paint off the walls to tell them, this is, and obviously with the 3 changes, that kind of gives you his verdict of the first half. But not good viewing the first 45 minutes, certainly wasn't.
No, I can't disagree with anything you say there. I think the one where Barisic goes to go past McGregor and McGregor calls him a shitbag, I'm sure everyone's seen the video. It's not good viewing, but it just sums up Barisic, and it summed up us in that first half, and it's just bravery. We shit the bed last night, and you can dress it up what we want. That's exactly what happened. Chris, what obviously we can go through the goals. I don't particularly I guess you don't either, mate, but would you, so at half time, the substitutions, what would you think of that?
I think it definitely needed to happen. Borna just was not present at all. He just wasn't there. He wasn't doing the basics. So without a doubt, needed to come off. I think as well, obviously Kamara as well, just wasn't cutting it. He's not been actually for a while. So not happy with the changes. We've touched on this actually. I think maybe Oya's at one point in different podcasts that we've done about Ryan Jack and the importance of Ryan Jack within our team. And I certainly think that he added, a bit of fight and desire into the 11. All right, we never actually done anything. We maybe redeemed a wee bit of certain players, but the changes needed to happen. And see, for me, the first half, we've obviously seen Rangers get beat off them a few times, right? And our times that we've been watching them, we've obviously seen us dish out a few doings as well. And they're always sore, but see when you lose it in that manner, and you lose it where there's no fight, there's no desire, and the Rangers totally surrendered to them right from the probably before the whistle, to be honest, before they've even started the game, and they sensed that. And there's 2 things for me which frustrate me about that, because this isn't an isolated incident for me, for this group of players. We saw it up at Aberdeen, the first game back. They were intimidated. I was there, I watched it in front of me, I watched certain players hide and certain players shirk, and you think, okay, tough night, whatever, let's go on, mate. But that's again what's happened there, and that for me is a concern. And the other thing for me, if you're talking maybe not just in a mentality sense, where is our pressing game going? It's not there anymore, and that's not an isolated incident. That's not something that is a tactical thing. So those 2 things for me definitely were in the first half a concern. We saw a return in that the second half, a wee bit of the pressing, and we saw a return, a wee bit of mentality shift in the second half. But ultimately, it still wasn't good enough. It's not great. But I think there's definitely concerns there for me in terms of the bigger picture. But to go down in that manner is unforgivable, really. In one of those games, it's not good enough. And the players obviously need to take that, and obviously, hopefully, they did get a rollicking at half time, and they need to move on, and quite quickly. As you said, David, it's now how we recover for that and bounce back, and it starts obviously Sunday. But yeah, really shocking first half. I didn't see it coming. I must admit, I didn't see that coming.
One of the similarities, probably between the game at Pittodrie and last night is that we're playing like a boy scouts team, after you, sir. We need to get a wee bit nasty, not to get it to the referee's book, but we have to stand up to people. You saw the playbook at Pittodrie and the playbook last night as to how they're approaching games. So we just have to match up. Could you imagine, Richard Gough or Ian Ferguson being in that team last night, and what the conversation in the changing rooms after that performance? There would have been blood on the walls, never mind the paint coming off the walls.
No, definitely. And I think, obviously, we don't like to talk about him too much, but there's definitely similarities there in the way that you see that clip about McGregor, and the way that Scott Brown was just able to get inside their heads in that game. And I don't care what anybody says. I've saw people say, Cat's getting over-egged or over-exaggerated. He absolutely dictated that game, along with the ref, Clancy, obviously his mate, but there was, he dictated that, and he actually put our players in a position where they weren't playing their game, they were concentrated on other stuff, and there's a sense there from him, and also his wee mate, obviously, Callum McGregor, that you can get in our players' heads, and that's not good. That's not good when you show that, particularly now, and we're in a title race, and we'll be, if we keep playing like the way we're playing, in terms of the points being dropped, I mean, what's that, an 8-point swing? Recent. So if we continue to play like that, we'll be fortunate to stay in the title race. I'm still confident, and I'm still very confident, but that first half for me is alarm bells, massive alarm bells.
Yeah, no, look, I think touching on the McGregor last night, that midfield last night technically is they're all good footballers, but they don't have that nastiness. Kamara away at Parkhead, especially in that, he needs to be what McGregor was for Celtic in that first half last night, being honest. And Kamara was just not at the races. And I agree, Chris, he hasn't been at the races for me for ages. I think there was one early game when Gio first come in where I thought, Kamara looked good, but nothing like we see last season. It's a real concern for me, and I think Ryan Jack is just that 45 minutes. I know, look, we're 3-0 down, but he just makes us, you just forget how good Jack was for us last season, and especially in a game like that. I was watching before the game last night. I watched the game where we won there 2-0 last season, and I know there's no fans in, but Jack was brilliant, and he just makes us tick. And hopefully he's fit enough and he can have a little run of games now. So just quickly moving on to Van Bronckhorst. Twitter's not been a kind place to Gio today, if I'm being honest. David, what's your thoughts on Gio till now? I was really singing his praises. I think we all were at Christmas, Boxing Day. We're 6 points clear, but 3 weeks on the training ground, and we've come back and we look a shadow of the team that we were before the break. What's your thoughts on it?
When Gio arrived, and he's got a kind of heavy fixture schedule, he's got a lot on his plate. We're playing games every 3 days, so there's no time in the training ground. He's just coping with he's nursing things along, and we're doing okay. We're getting the results, we're keeping the zero, ticking over, just waiting on the break, for Gio to get some time in the training ground. The concern that you would have would be that Gio's now had that time on the training ground, and we've now had 4 games, from him putting his stamp, more of a stamp certainly, on the team, and it's not a good look, because we're not playing, lower division matches in Holland, where it's all the technical ability is what comes to the fore in most of these games, whereas Scottish football technical ability is only part of the story. There has to be you have to match up to some of the hammer throwers, and there's just no two ways about it. You can't avoid it. You've got to go through that wall. So we'd have to recognise that. He has to recognise that we're in a battle with Ross County with a 3-each draw on Saturday, whereas a bit more dig, a bit more pressing, more energy, more aggression, and we would have taken 3 points. We would have competed last night. We would have got the result at Pittodrie. It's not going to be pretty stuff sometimes. Sometimes you're just going to have to roll up their sleeves and get stuck right in. And I think maybe that's not his default position. So I'm hoping that's not what we're going to see in the future from Gio, because he's going to have to learn PDQ. He's an experienced individual. You know, he has experience of Scottish football, but I'm just slightly concerned about the conversations that were in the dressing room prior to that game last night, because when that game kicked off, we just didn't seem ready for it. We knew, the street knew what was going to happen, so we weren't ready for it, and we had to counter that. Not as well as contain it, but we have to do something, you know, a wee bit more positive than that, than hold out, you know, for the 25 minutes till they run out of steam. I was hoping for a wee bit more forethought in what I've seen from Gio last night. So, and, you know, trying to be as positive as we can be, I'm hoping that the game on Sunday will be a horse of a different colour.
Yeah, no, I think you make some really good points on Gio. What surprised me most is we've not got a Dutch manager in who hasn't experienced and played. I know he played in Scottish football for ages ago, but he knows what it's like up here. Do you know what I mean? It is a little bit of a worry watching us last night and Patodri, and we're just so timid. That for me, that is a concern. Chris, what's your overriding thoughts on Gio right now?
I think some of the issues that we're seeing actually sort of predated Gio. I don't think, I think we've had issues throughout the season. If we're going to be honest, I know we had a lead and he's threw that away, so but I can maybe talk about that separately. But I think there's been points in the season up to now where you're being a wee bit concerned about some of the performances. Even going back to the Malmo game in the summer, which we should, in my opinion, we should have won that. We should have progressed through there. And then you've got the semi-final when he's in the stands and you've got Connor Goldson, you're pretty much one of your most senior players, vice captain, saying that some players have just sort of chucked it, they've gave up, so I think there's definitely been stuff that's predated him. There's definitely stuff going on, a wee bit of disruption behind the scenes, Gerrard leaving, the full backroom staff leaving. For me, Michael Beale leaving is bigger than probably Gerrard. I think the organisation has been missed, and also as well we've not been as deadly on set pieces for Tom Culshaw left as well. So I think there's certainly some issues there, which I think is predates Gio, but if you take Gio on his own, my concerns for me, I wanted Gio when he came in, I definitely did. I think I spoke about this on another podcast, but I was the one of the guys tracking his plane from Holland and stuff like that, and I was excited in work that he was coming, but ultimately I wanted him. My only concern now when we think about it is we've done it quite quick, and I just hope that Ross Wilson done it for the football reasons, the best reasons, other than trying to do it quickly and appease the fans. I hope he's calculated it and it's been a best candidate as opposed to doing it quick because of how quick it was required. But I've concerns on how deep we are under him, and also as well the lack of the press for me. There's no press. We don't press at the right points, but we're susceptible to being pressed against, and obviously teams on top of us. And now that teams know that, I think we'll see that more often now. I think we'll see teams trying to get involved in a sort of street fight with us, and players need to own that, but also Gio needs to own that as well. So I'm still confident in Gio. I'm still going to back him. I don't think it's blind loyalty either. I think he does have a good football pedigree playing, but also coaching with Feyenoord. But I'm starting to see concerns, and it's just about how that obviously goes. We're going to find out a lot about Gio on Sunday. People just think maybe we're just going to need to turn up and win here, but it's not going to be like that. So we'll find out a lot about this team and also the coaching staff and the management now. Because ultimately we're now chasing. We're chasing, and we'll also find out about them, because as we've saw before, following Rangers, it's very different when you get that lead and you're the ones. Celtic this season were, despite spending a lot of money, they've been the plucky underdogs, and everybody's saying that they're now expected to win that league. They're now their fans expect that now. So that's a different type of pressure. So we'll see how they respond, but also more importantly, we'll see for us how we respond and kick on.
Yeah, I think, do you know what? I don't want to give them credit, but they've gone on quite a unbeaten run now in the league, and I thought we'd be well out. And I think that's a lot to do with us. I thought we'd be out of sight now. But we've dropped silly points. Look, Gerrard as well, as you said, Chris, there was concerns with performances under Gerrard for a long time. I think that the change at the time, I think it was good, it was needed. But yeah, you're right as well, saying we was all, I think it's fair to say a lot were disappointed when Gerrard left as well. And we did need to get a manager in quickly. Ross Wilson said that he would get us another attacking manager, which at the moment, if I'm being honest, I wouldn't really call us an attacking side. Especially, as I said, I don't want to just go back to last night, but games, even when we've won, it's been a little bit pragmatic, I think. We've been a bit careful. I want to see us get on the front foot and get after teams a little bit more. I think we've got good enough players to do that. But definitely, it's going to be interesting now that they've gone top and they've got to handle that pressure. But I do as well think that the team with the players that we've got are better being top than they are chasing. So that's another, question. We've seen this team when they're chasing fall away. So listen, I hope they get it together in the next couple of days and we come out Sunday and we see a different team. But on Sunday, David, what changes would you make to the team on Sunday? I think that's the big question that everyone's asking at the minute.
Well, you're going to see some of a team that is going to reflect more the second half team last night than the first half team. But I think as a team talk before he sends them out, he's going to have to grasp the nettle of post Pittodrie, post last night, that teams are going to come out and be in our faces, because you don't have to be Pep Guardiola to know that every other club will be watching, what's happening to Rangers, how to get at them, and we'll have some of the same. Thank you very much. So, Robbie Nielsen's team talk on Sunday's quite easy. I could probably do it. So that's what we're going to face. And whatever team they put out on Sunday had better understand that and be prepared to counter that and match it in terms of energy and in terms of aggression. So, and you're hoping at that point then the superior technical ability of our players will shine through. But we've got to understand that's what that's the league we're in, and we can't ignore it. And Gio's got to acknowledge that. I know that he's got a set-up in mind and a way he wants to play in mind, but he's got to take account of the league we're playing in and have that factored into how the Rangers team approached the game on Sunday. I'm hoping to do that. So I'm looking to see obviously Morelos will be back. I'm not sure if Ramsey will feature, but I would hope he would at least partly feature, because this chap's, an elite football player. How fit does he have to be? See if he brings 70% fitness but 100% attitude, then he will be an asset to us on Sunday. So we're playing Hearts, for Christ's sake. I'm hoping that the team talk will reflect that, the players' attitude and the players' behaviour will reflect what's required here. We're not going to play. It's not Brazil 1970 we need. It's we need Arsenal of the 90s. And Big Vieira blootering people and putting down a marker, saying that we're not going to be a soft touch for you guys, so you can shove that up your. So, and I'm hoping that we will get some sort of response from like that, because we need to go through this wall here, because it's not going to go away. They're not going to change their approach, so we will have to adapt.
I think that Jack and Morelos do that for us straight away. I think if you put them two in the team from the start, I think Jack does that, and I think Morelos, going into the game last night, we all knew Morelos was going to be a big miss. But when you're actually watching that first 10 minutes and Roof cannot hold the ball up at all, the two centre halves must have had the easiest game they've had all season. Nothing against Roof, but he's not Morelos, and at least with Morelos, if we're not playing well, we can win free kicks. He's just a nuisance. We didn't have that last night, and I think that was a big miss. I can't wait to see him back in the team Sunday. And Jack, and another one as well that actually sitting back and thinking the way we set up last night, Steve Davis as well. Just that experience. Gio's not really played him that much, and when I sort of think about it, I don't know why, because Davis on his day is still one of our best midfielders. Do you know what I mean? He's on the ball. Like last night, someone getting on the ball. He's probably the best we've got, and that experience is going to be needed now. So he's another one I'd hope that we see a little bit more of instead of John Lundstrom coming off the bench. You know, I'd rather see Davis. And another one is Hollander. He's back in training. We need to get him back in that team as quickly as possible. If we can get bounce games for him, if we can just do everything we can to get him back in, I think we need to speed that up as well, and as well as Ramsey. But I'm hoping we can get at least 20 minutes out of Ramsey on Sunday. Chris, what's your thoughts on Sunday? It's going to be a tough game. I'm sure Hearts are going to be up for it, as they always are.
Without a doubt. I think obviously the last two games we've played them this season have been, although we won 2-0 at Tynecastle, it looks on paper that it was a comfortable day, but we know it was anything but. They had plenty of chances to sort of win that game, and we took our chance as well. And then the other game, obviously earlier on in the season, was 1 each with the header at the kind of the death under Gerrard. So I think we'll win. I'm still confident that we'll obviously respond well on Sunday. We've got to remember that we potentially could be 4 points behind going in to that game if obviously their result goes their way. But I think for me, pretty much what you've saw in the second half, that would probably will look similar to that. Barisic, for me, cannot start. He needs to be told he's not starting for that performance. It was unbelievably poor. And I'm not just singling him out, but, there was other players there, but he was awful. And when I watched the highlights today, which it was painful, but I wanted to watch it again before I come on here, everything was going down his side, so they targeted him and he just hid. So, yeah, for me, Batty goes into left back and Balogun partners Goldson. Until Big Phil's back, as you say, and we can obviously get him in there. Ryan Jack, for me, even if he's 70%, I know we don't want to risk him and you don't want to overexert any current injuries, but if he's fit enough to be on the bench, he's fit enough to start for me. So he gets in the team, probably one of the first names in the team sheet. And again, if we've signed Aaron Ramsey and we're paying what we're paying, he needs to be playing. He needs to be playing. He needs to play and he needs to feature. So for me, I would even start him if he's half ready. But I think Gio will obviously try and get him into the team when possible. And Morelos is massive for us, absolutely massive. Kemar Roof's a really intelligent football player. He can find space. He can, when we're on the front foot, he's good. Obviously, he can play up front with somebody else, but being the main striker in terms of holding up the play, winning cheap fouls, playing dirty, getting the ball up the park, taking the pressure off your defence, that is not his game. So for me, Morelos is massive. And when you look at that, when you actually think about those players to come in, Ryan Jack, Morelos, Aaron Ramsey, Hollander, that's a spine, that's a spine of a team. So for me, if we can get them on the team and firing for the remaining games starting on Sunday, then we're well in this title race. There's absolutely no doubt about that. But for me, the test on Sunday is the mentality, the character. And you know what it's going to be like if we don't get an early goal. You know what Ibrox will be like, and can these players cope with that? We've had our captain in the past in the programme notes saying that they don't really like that, so we'll see in terms of where they're at with their mentality on Sunday. But I'm backing them 100%. I'm confident that we'll get the result. And we'll see how it goes. But it's huge for us on Sunday to bounce back well.
Yeah, I think you make a really good point about Ibrox on Sunday. I think after a game like last night, if we're not a goal up in the first 20 minutes, it's going to be tense. It's going to be nervy. But we was all on the pod on Tuesday, and we said from the result on Saturday that we needed a response from the manager and the players, and we got that last night. So we're asking again now. We need an even bigger response on Sunday. And for me, it's we need to get it. Listen, we need to get it. We need to go on a run like we did just before Gio. When Gio come in, I think it was 8 or 9, 10 wins in a row. We need to go and do that again now. If you do that, I think that wins you the title. So it's really, really important. Obviously, David won on the pod on Tuesday. Monday. So what was your overall thoughts on signing Ramsey? And is there pressure on him now to be sort of rushed after last night's result into the team?
Well, unless he's come with an injury, then it's some training. He may not be 100%, but I'll take 70% Ramsey any day of the week. Over Glenn Kamara. Kamara's contribution last night was outrageous, and as it has been, which I thought, as I sit up in that club dig and watch Glenn Kamara. And we chat about, what does actually Kamara bring to the party, on a game-by-game basis. I mean, even the Livingston game, we were asking, what exactly does Glenn Kamara do that's invaluable to this team? So changes on Sunday are inevitable, and I want to see Ramsey in there. I'm not sure whether I want to see Kent, because Kent's contribution has been, you would say he's trying, but it ain't coming off for him. So maybe Diallo, Sakala, Morelos up front, maybe with Ruth, whatever the combination will be. Maybe it's time to give Ryan a seat on the bench. Glenn Kamara is not in. Borna Barisic is not in. And, at Balogun, I thought last night in the second half, you could see the difference, in terms of physical challenges, winning balls. When that changed, when Barisic went off, Big Bassi at left back, physically big, strong guy. I mean, so the defence for Sunday is pretty much sorted for me. But as I said before, more than that is the attitude of the players. I think we've reached a kind of watershed moment here in Gio's team, because the Feyenoords were the Feyenoord fans, were pointing out when he became manager at Ibrox, that they knew him as the horseshoe, because it would go from the left back to the centre back to the right back, from the right back to the centre back to the left back, and this would happen for minutes at a time before they would actually commit themselves forward. And I think Gio needs to be a bit braver. We've got better players, so let's get the ball forward. And it's the perfect example last night is when the wee clip from Borna, when he elects to turn back. I don't want to see them turn back. There'll be occasions when it's obvious, when it's 60-40. But when he's got the opportunity to knock it past them and go forward, we should be doing that a wee bit more often than we are at the moment. The easy option, just put it back, the horseshoe stuff. We need to get less of that. We need to get more up the park. And we need to have midfield. I mean, Ryan Jack is last night, obviously we're 3-0 down, but you could see from his attitude in the game that he was a bit pissed off, and he's got that wee bit of aggression in him, which wasn't there in the first half, and we need more of that. And I'm hoping that the team on Sunday will reflect that. And Gio, had better not talk them out of that, coach them out of it, because it's absolutely required. I'm hoping to see a change in approach on Sundays, because I mean, if we're going to beat Hearts 1-0 and say, and all leave the stadium on Sunday and say, well, at least we get the 3 points, we're probably not an inch further forward, because we need to be laying down a marker to Hearts and every other side in this league that those days are over. We need to make a change here. So I'm hoping that we will see that change, and it's about the players' attitude and commitment and energy. Kind of like Scott Arfield brings it kind of naturally in his game. There are other players, in the team who don't have it. Therefore, we need to say, well, either they adopt it or we get players who do have it. And I'm hoping that some of the players who do have it will be in there. Alfredo being one of them, obviously. So here's hoping.
Definitely. I think, again, you make some really good points with Gio and the way that I see that this morning, the horseshoe. And I actually sat and thought, about the Ross County game, not so much last night, but the Ross County game, and that first half, that was all we done. It was right back to left to centre half, to the other centre half, to left back, and then it was like, oh God, this. Yeah, it needs to change. I think the most interesting thing for me is he needs to actually change it from what it's been after the winter break. He needs to change it. And is he going to be stubborn, or is he going to stick to what's been happening lately and just, very Mark Warburton-esque and say, go and do it better? And that can't happen for me. And we need to get, I think Kent. Yeah, I agree as well with the point on Kent last night. He's been poor for me. He's he's been injured, but he's come back. But a big part of it last night for me was the midfield, and we didn't get our Kents and Diallo's the other side 1v1 enough, where it felt like every time they went forward, they got they pinned us back, and they got Barisic 1v1 and Tavernier 1v1. So I think that comes from the midfield. And Gio, someone that actually played in midfield as well, I just find it really surprising, especially in a game like last night. So we can talk about Hearts and Hibs as well. We've got some big run of fixtures now in February. Chris, what is, for me, the league is obviously the most important thing in the next little block. But what is for you now, looking at us? What would you like to see?
So obviously starting with Sunday, a reaction, definitely a reaction from the players, and a reaction from Gio. Obviously, I want us to kind of find a bit of form again. I want us to go on that run similar to what we've had under Gio before. But things need to improve. We need to, when we're on the front foot in a game, we don't then sit back. Once we've got that goal, I think that's been one of my biggest frustrations with Gio. Even the games that we've won, it's maybe 2-0 or whatever, or 1-0 you've been up, and he's sitting back with a 1-goal advantage. So that for me needs to go away, because it's not suiting the players, it's not suiting this group of players, and we've got this group of players now for where they are. For me as well, obviously we've got Europe, we've got Dortmund and that coming up, and that was nice of Rangers to just take out about £120 from my bank account the other day for that. But we've got that coming up, so that's obviously a good fixture to look forward to. But the reality is, it's the league that matters. The league is number one priority, and obviously the cup as well. It would be nice to win a cup, but for us, the league's huge. And for me, finding a consistent team, getting the 11 on the park that we're going to go with, being ruthless with certain players. One person that's escaped criticism here, and I think he's been absolutely stinking all season, is Ryan Kent. He's been rotten. I think he's had 2 goal contributions or something. Somebody was saying, I was reading that today, which is awful, absolutely awful. And he's a boy that avoids criticism a lot. But for me, if you're not playing and you don't want to be here, which it looks to me there's some players that don't want to be here, then go away. Go away in the summer. I went away in January if we had offers for them. Being ruthless with the team selection and playing the players that are going to get us over the line for this title. Because if you've got boys on that park that aren't interested, they're losing their discipline, they're not doing the basics, why are you selecting them? Why are you continuing to pick them? So for me, there's a test of his leadership and a test of his management of the squad, but he needs to find an 11 that's going to get him through these games and stick with it where possible, and hopefully find a bit of form as a result of that. I think us as fans as well, I think it's important. Obviously, we pay our money, we go to the games, we go to Ibrox and stuff. I think it's important that, although we touched on Ibrox might be difficult on Sunday, but it's important that we get behind the team on Sunday. Hugely important. Even if it is sticky and it is tricky, because we know that this group of players can fold when it's not going right. So yeah, for me, finding that consistency, showing brutal leadership, cutting people out if it's not happening for them, and hopefully finding a level of form that's required.
No, I think you make a really good point about Ibrox. I think that Sunday they're going to need us, even more now. We are in a proper title race where I think most of us thought the league would be home and dry pretty much now. It's not. It's going to go down to the wire. So we need to get behind the players. You've seen last night I think that they played off their crowd last night, and you see the response. We need to be doing that when teams come to Ibrox now in the next few weeks. I think as well with Kent, I look at Kent and I'm not sure if he wants to be here either. I think that especially with Gerrard and Bill and people that he's had around him throughout his whole career, I'm getting vibes that he wants away. But these players need to give everything to us from now to the end of the season, because we've stuck by them. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, definitely. And just you were touching on something there about the title race, and I've spoken about this a few times over the last few days, but it has been about 10 or 11 years before we've actually had one in Scotland. So I think it's people kind of forget that it does sort of feel like this. I was looking at the actual last title race, the one that we obviously won at Rugby Park when we scored in the first sort of 20 seconds. We actually lost 2 Old Firm games back to back. Samaras scored 2 at Ibrox, and then they beat us 3-0. They beat us 3-0 there at their stadium not long after. I think it was about a month later. In between then, we were dropping points against Dundee United, and Dundee United beat us at Ibrox. I think Hearts maybe they beat us, but it might have been at Ibrox away. So it was tricky, and it was. I remember getting into those. I was going to pretty much all the games at that point. I only had 1 kid at the time. I've now got 3, so it's a bit harder. But it was tricky. And you're thinking after those 2 games, especially the 3-0 game, we got battered that night as well. We were rotten, but we were on a run at the end of the season. I think out the last 8 games, we won 7 of them, and they folded a wee bit, and we went into the last game and we absolutely blew Kilmarnock away. So I think, although it's raw still, yesterday's still very raw. I think a wee bit of context is required when we think about what actually happens in a title race, and it does swing back and forward. I'm just very hopeful that we can bounce back on Sunday. But in these title race kind of seasons, it does feel like this sometimes, where you need to kind of dust yourself up. I mean, in that year, I actually didn't think we were going to win the league getting into that. But we found form at the right time, and obviously the great man Walter Smith just picked consistent team towards the end of that season, and big players stood up when it mattered, and big moments swung it at that point. So yeah, that's in my head as a comfort blanket at the minute, where I'm thinking it's been done before.
Chris, you remember the season when I think was it the 5th last game we played them at Ibrox, and they beat us 2-1, and Craig Bellamy scored. Remember they were wheeling out the banner, we won the league at Ibrox, and we ended up winning it on the last day. So this is not complete disaster. Last night is a setback, but we need to learn from it, and Gio has to learn from it. So if it'll be a lesson well worth it if we take the lessons to be learned from that, what we're going to be facing in the next few games, and that we adapt. Because and that's my concern, is that whether Gio will adapt or not, or whether he's going to be remaining, the pragmatic man that he seems to be, or whether he will, because he's gone on record as saying that he will look at the opposition and he'll tinker, with things. I don't think that Rangers should be doing that. We should be have a level of player where they should be worrying about us. We don't need to worry too much about them. As we do our shit, they've got something to worry about, not us. So it's about getting into that game, laying down a marker, score the first goal, and then our immediate thought in scoring the first goal is, when are we scoring the second goal? Not let's get players up the park. Can start converting some of the chances that we do make. I mean, last night we actually had the bulk of possession. We were slightly over 50% in terms of possession last night. You wouldn't have thought that from your overall impression of the game, but maybe it was the horseshoe that was 50% of our possession was just hanging it about. So we're not going to. We need to be a wee bit braver. We need to have the team selection reflect that we're going to be braver, and get the fucking players on the park that are going to do the damage. It's not a beauty contest we're in here. It's about getting and Rangers being what Rangers should be. So
definitely, I agree. I think it's a great point about the banner and the bed sheet. We won the league at Ibrox, and I remember that game as well. And you're walking away from that thinking, uphill battle now. But some strange things happen in that split when it's tight. And that's that's what I'm clinging on to. My only worry is we derail now. Like what we've maybe saw before. Is that process already starting? Over the last two games. So that's why Sunday's absolutely crucial. But a title race, I was speaking to. There's a lot of younger boys, yourself probably, Mason. I don't know how old you are, but you look a lot younger than me anyway. But a lot of younger boys in the pub last night, and they were, hyperventilating that was it finished and that was us and capitulating. But it's total scar tissue from the last few times where we've dropped the ball at this point where Rangers just derail. So what I was trying to kind of say was, it's a title race and I think it will go down to I still think it will go down to the wire. And we'll just need to see if we've got the mentality for that. Walter Smith's team had the mentality for that without a shadow of a doubt. We'll see if Gio's does, but again, that starts on Sunday, so we'll see how it goes.
Just one other example of Walter Smith speaking to Kevin Thompson, prior to an Old Firm game. He says, Kevin, right, boss, what do you want? He says, get out there, and if you haven't been booked in the first 20 minutes, I'm taking you off. So you get an understanding, what that team talk was about, and so compared to what we put up with last night, so Kevin Thompson's instructions. That's when he was ragdolling Keane. When so that's the approach, and so obviously it's not beautiful football, but obviously Walter knew exactly what was required. Get out there, get in their faces, and let the good players sort it. Kevin, you're just out there to make sure that they know they're in a game. So a wee bit of that's required. I think we need some of that back.
Oh no, 100%. I think another one was Walter Smith was when he first come back. The first title we won was we beat them 1-0. Davis scores, and then we dropped points at Hibs the following week, and then they dropped points at Hibs the week after. Yeah, it is. I mean, yeah, I'm a little bit younger, I think, but even all the titles we won, what I remember was always the last day. There's only one that I really remember was the second one when Smith was, the second spell when we won it easy. But everyone else, every time else. But yeah, still, I was one of them in the pub last night, hyperventilating. I'm not gonna lie, but we need a reaction. Do you know what I mean? We need a reaction quickly. So just to finish it off, just like to say thanks, David. Thanks, Chris. Really enjoyed that there. David, score prediction for Sunday, please.
You would think I would learn, but I'm not. But the answer I'm going to give you will say no, he hasn't learned. So I'm going for a comfortable, absolutely not in any way over the top 3-0 to Rangers. Morelos was two of them.
Take that all day long.
Alfie's back. The Buffalo is back.
Chris, what you going, mate?
I'm going to go a wee bit further than that. I think we've got a potential doing of Hearts on Sunday. I was going to say 5, but I'll stick with 4 because I genuinely think that there'll be a reaction. I think there'll be a reaction, and I think obviously the opposite end of that scale is if there's no reaction, as we've spoke about Ibrox. But see if we can get an early goal, I think Ibrox will be rocking on Sunday. I think the fans will get behind them. So no, I'm going to go with 4-0 Rangers. Fancy it.
God, the confidence here. I'll tell you what, I think we'll win. I'm going to go 2-0. Love to see 4 or 5. I can't remember the last time we actually this season proper battered someone 4 or 5. Oh, was it Motherwell the last time away from home? But so hopefully we got one of them in us. But yeah, thanks again, lads. Really enjoyed that. And thanks for listening. We are the people.